Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Oh, hello. Oh, that was a terrible hello. And welcome to the Human Factors Cast annual, what are we calling this? Review? Recap? 2022 recap? We're pre-recording this, but it's set for release during the holidays 2022. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Barry Kirby.
Ho, ho.
You're very festive in your shirt. I think that was cool.
I got Christmas top on and everything. And I'm just disappointed in your lack of suiting up and putting on the appropriate uniform.
You know what? Maybe after the break, I will. Who knows? We got a great show for you tonight. We'll be talking about all the stuff that you may have missed in 2022. We're going to go through every top news story that we found, and we're gonna go through it. All right. So let's get into it. Yes, this is the whole thing today. This is the part of the show all about Human Factors News. It's the entire thing. So, Barry, why don't you start us off in January? What did we talk about in January?
So in January, the first one we hit was how COVID is changing the study of human behavior. And that was episode 230, titled, Did COVID Change the Way We Study Human Behavior? Do you remember that one, Nick?
I truthfully don't. I think that was the very first thing that we did this year, so I don't remember at all.
No, me neither.
All right. Well, this one wasn't a story that we did on the show, but it was one that we found. It's called Mind-Controlled Robots Are Now One Step Closer. I'm imagining there's some human brain interface that's linked up to these.
Quite possibly. One we didn't do was experts saying people will soon live entire lives in the metaverse, and we did that on episode 232.
Now, I remember that one. That one was a fun one because we talked about, well, how are they going to eat, sleep, defecate, and urinate in VR, and it was a. I think we ultimately came down with you can't.
It's interesting because there was some stuff done more recently where some people have been holding big events in the metaverse and nobody turned up.
Right, exactly.
Spent loads and loads of money on doing it, and actually people just still don't really get it.
Yeah. All right. For the next story here is for the first time in medical history, an autonomous drone helps save the life of a cardiac arrest patient. This was a cool one. So now I do remember reading about this story. I believe the drone had a defibrillator on it, and it actually flew out and was able to save somebody's life.
That's cool, and hopefully they'll do more of that. The next one, virtual reality could help make therapy easier, which I can see is something really good. Again, it's about creating environments and like that kind of works with, which would also link in quite nicely with some of the other stories we've had from this year.
Yeah, and we've actually seen, like phobia therapy actually successful when you expose people to their phobias in a virtual environment first. It's actually, like have them touch a spider in VR first before they actually experience it. Okay. I see you shaking your head over there. There is some efficacy there, but I think what this one's talking about is like actual sit down talk therapy. So that's interesting. The next one here we actually covered in episode 200 and what was this one? See, I am
233.
233. Yeah. How much do students learn when they double the speed of their class videos? And does watching 2 times the speed impact learning? That was the episode there, and I think it did not. I think they still sped watch it, and it was fine.
And this is where we learned that you listen to your podcast at a faster speed, and I think that's where I was saying that we're missing the artistry and the performance of people like us, because all you can hear is talking at this rate, and we're talking really quick, and what do you get out of that? And rather than the dulcet tones that we normally get. One of the next ones was new military tech lets one person fly a swarm of 130 drones. And this was episode 234. This is something quite close to my heart because it's around how you can control multiple vehicles and get across an intent without actually flying each individual vehicle, whilst you're also flying some sort of command vehicle. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that was a super cool story to talk about, especially thinking about some of the control mechanisms for how to control these hives of drones at a certain target, right? You kind of paint the target rather than control the drone in so many words. It was just an interesting look at it, and the paradigm shift from controlling a single drone versus thinking about objective based. So that was it for January. So let's go ahead and move into February here. The first story in February is Coping with Complexity in the COVID Pandemic, an exploratory study of intensive care units. So this was a study looking at intensive care units and basically looking at how they were coping with the pandemic.
And I think there is more and more studies coming out of the pandemic, which I think we hopefully going to be learning a lot from. The next story in February was surveys with repetitive questions yield bad data, a study finds. I've got to admit, I don't remember reading that one at all. Did you read that?
Yes. So basically the gist of that one was if they are repeating questions that are similar, then they're going to be less likely to provide accurate answers in the subsequent questions. So that first one is probably more representative than the other ones. The next one up here, virtual reality users keep suffering horrible injuries. We've all seen our fair share of fun virtual reality videos of people throwing their devices into their TVs and taking off the headset and realizing, oh my God, what have I done? But this one was basically somebody, let's see here, getting hurt doing strenuous physical activity during a fighting virtual Coliseum game. Basically hurting their own shoulder and a couple of other injuries in that story. Fun.
Yes. The next one is impact of COVID-19 social isolation measures on early development. And so that was looking at how everybody being locked down actually affected early development in younger children.
Next story here is a story on interacting with robots. And when you think about hotels, the story here reads, people prefer interacting with female robots in hotels. And I think we had talked about this briefly on like a pre-show or a post-show, and how it was kind of rooted misogyny. And so there's that. But yeah,
Yeah.
robots.
The next one is people are fast and accurate when making high-value decisions. I'm fairly sure we actually spoke about that on the show, or we have spoken about it in a different context. But yes, that's basically saying you're actually quite speedy and you're quite accurate when the value behind whatever it is you're making the decision about, you can actually quite well.
Yes, I do remember that, and I'll have to get a number on that one because I feel like that was a story that maybe got missed. This next one here is a story that we covered in February. It was on it's episode 235, and our story was, can paraplegics walk again with assistance from technology? It was about a man who had some spine implants that allowed him to control his legs using an app. And I don't remember if this is the one that Brian was on and he brought up the bionic eye where they just kind of shut down the eye while he was walking around.
Yes, it could have been actually, yeah.
Because he brought up I think he brought up the same concerns here with, will they shut down the app while he's using his legs?
Or if your app gets upgraded, or the other one was if the company goes out of business.
Yeah, exactly.
The next one is no, we've just done that one. Is overlooked disease. Tens of thousands of people have problems at work. Fair enough.
Yeah. Do you remember what that one was? Because that was that I remember that story, but I don't remember what the overlooked thing was. Do you remember?
So it's basically around people with migraines or frequent
Gotcha.
tension headaches have reduced work ability. So it's basically taking more into account more around what basically I guess some of the unseen things that we don't see when people are at work.
Gotcha. All right. So this next one here is researchers call for greater clarity over what constitutes a mental health problem. We actually talked about a reference to this show just a couple weeks ago when we had Heidi on talking about airplane pilots and basically the system that locks them in. I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but this one specifically is what is mental health and how do we define it? And I remember even some folks from HFES reached out to us about having that conversation for human factors professionals too. And that was episode 236, if anyone's interested.
Next one is study challenges and different tasks at specific times.
Yeah.
So basically, you can just basically look at it. You can have different amount of productivity depending on the different type of task, depending on the time of day it is, and so you can actually allocate your work accordingly to do the certain tasks at different times to be most productive.
Right. I do remember that now. All right. 1 in 3 young people say they felt happier during lockdown. So,
which I think, yeah, that works quite well because actually a lot of people aren't as outgoing as we think. They have a lot more relationships online and things like that. So it makes actually a lot of sense.
Makes sense to me.
The next one is seeing green can ease confusion, anger, and navigating hospitals. WVU researcher says.
Yeah. So this was an interesting one because basically putting green environments in hospitals is making people feel better, right? You see trees, you see nature, and therefore you have a better physiological response to treatment. And then the last one here, rounding out February, employers should nurture friendship and support amongst coworkers to unlock creativity. I remember us talking a lot about creativity and inventiveness, and what's the other I word I'm thinking of? Um,
Inspiration, innovation.
Innovation. That's it. I remember us having a lot of conversation about that during this. Basically, what this is, it's a, in my opinion, it's still a very predatory thing where employers are asking their employees to be friends. You're part of a family. You don't want to leave. It's trapping them because of other external social or internal social factors. So, yeah, you have any other thoughts on that one, Barry?
Yeah, well, it was one of the studies that came out of the Bath University here in the UK, and it was an interesting one because, again, it sort of highlighted trying to get that balance right between how do you support people and trying to get them to give them the social structures that you need, but not taking it too far, and because there's negative cultures that can be brought in amongst that.
Yeah. And that was episode 237 for everyone's reference. It was Can Human Factors of Workplace Relationships Improve Creativity? Hey, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back to talk about what happened in March. All right. And we're back. We changed our clothes. Let's get on with March. So, Barry, go ahead. What's the first one in March?
So, in the first one of March, your lunchtime walks in the summer could be making you less productive, which I guess 15 minutes of work walking outside on a hot day has impaired cognitive performance. And this was apparently most striking in men who didn't get enough sleep.
Interesting. I'm glad I don't go on walks. Neurobiology, our minds distinguish between various social influences. So this one we actually did talk about on the show, and this one was episode 238, how our minds distinguish various social influences. We're not feeling very inspired with the episode title that week.
Next one is researchers uncover how the human brain separates, stores, and retrieves memories.
And then after that, we had understanding sexual activity while driving as a form of distracted driving. This is one of your favorite stories of the year, as evidenced by our search traffic on Google. No, this one is a great story about the research that they conducted to talk about risky driving behaviors. Anyway, go check that out episode. It was episode 239.
Always one of my favorites. UX focuses on men's experience. We need financial products built for women.
Up next, we had gamification. Past habits may impact future eco-friendly tendencies differently.
And next, we have US regulators no longer fully require autonomous vehicles to have human controls.
Oh, yeah, that's a
big one.
Hey, Barry, we remember this one. I still have the app on my phone here. Man credits affair with his AI girlfriend for saving his marriage. This one we talked about on the show was episode 240. How can AI provide companionship?
And a long-running experiment is clearly still going on. Next up, we have editorial. Chatbots could one day replace search engines. This is why that is a terrible idea. Sort of getting into the idea that chatbots are much more interrogative around
Yeah,
what we want.
and I'm going to go ahead and take a guess that we talked about this last week on the show, too. Oh, it's me. The UK is training paramedics to use jetpacks in emergencies. And yeah, that was a good story. We talked about it on the show. It's episode 241, how giving paramedics jetpacks can stop people from dying. This was one of my favorite ones of the year, Barry, I think, that we talked about. So much so that Gravity ignored us entirely.
Gravity ignored us, but actually the paramedics who were using it, they retweeted us. So they chimed in and listened to our expert analysis. The next one, China's jet nosedived from 29,000 feet, baffles crash scientists.
Yeah, that was a tough one. All right, and with that, that's March. Let's get into April here. So starting off April, we had the IEEE standard will make autonomous vehicles safer. I'm not sure what the standard is, or what's in the standard, I should say. It's the IEEE standard, but autonomous vehicles.
The next one was study finds top reviews, not average ratings, sway customer decision making. And that was an episode that we did, episode 242, how top reviews help sway customer decisions. Really interesting one.
Yeah, this one was also a recast that we put out right around a month ago for Black Friday. So hope you all enjoyed listening to that one. Thought it was a good one to have right around that time. Next one here, Arctic simulation of moon-like habitat shows that well-being sessions can improve mental health in extreme isolation. So it's good for some of our astronauts who are going on long-term spaceflight.
That's true. In episode 243, we talked about how human factors can help pilots catch a rocket booster in midair, or as we found out, not actually catch a rocket booster in midair. And I'm still not entirely convinced that they've got there yet.
So a couple follow-ups to this one. This is interesting, and that's why I like doing these year-end reviews, is because we can actually do some follow-ups on these. They caught it, but then they dropped it. So they've caught it. They just haven't done a successful mission to date yet. That process, it was really cool watching the video of the hook on the helicopter coming over the parachute and hooking it, and it was totally out of camera shot, so you didn't see it. But then it came back down, and you see it's right there, and it's like, oh, they got this rocket. But yeah, they've ultimately had to drop them. And an interesting one. And I think, Barry, also just a meta commentary here. We're beyond the threshold for where I'm remembering every episode. So because now I'm remembering every single one. All right, this next one here. Study reveals a set of brain regions that control complex sequences of movement. Some neuropsych that we didn't necessarily dig into on the show, but always fun to get those stories.
Then we go to episode 244, where we looked at fixing humanity's broken risk perception to save the planet, which was the outcome of a UN report.
Yeah, that one was also interesting, heavily tied into climate ergonomics. That was episode 244. Yeah, 244. So that actually rounds out the month of April, believe it or not. We're already through April. So let's get into May. Yet another episode that you all love, according to our Google search reports. VR researchers have basically figured out a way how to simulate how to kiss in VR. And this is episode 246. Let's kiss in VR.
That's what it says on the tin.
That's it.
But then in episode 245, from ButcherBot to RoboBurger Flippers, 6 ways the food industry is turning to tech in 2022. And so that episode we had human-robot interaction will change the food industry.
Yeah, I remember that one being a really fun one, just because there was a bunch of different technologies going on there behind the scenes that could come into the food place. All right, next up, we have a coaching program that reduces burnout among resident physicians, which is always good news.
Mm-hmm. The next one is, does presenting credibility levels of journalistic sources affect the news consumption? News study finds limited effects.
Nope. Big ol' no. We also have design guidelines for test level 3 through test level 5 roadside barrier systems placed on mechanically stabilized earth retaining walls. And I was so stoked for this story, but no one wanted it. So there's that.
I'm pleased that you're excited by that. Yeah. Next one is video games can help boost children's intelligence, which is great. I mean, I think we all know that basically telling a story allows people to take on knowledge a lot easier. And so this must feed into that one.
Yeah. There was also another story in May all about how we perceive crowds. I got into some cognitive psychology about how we actually look at crowds of people and what we do when we encounter them. Also a very interesting read.
Yeah. The next one is, it will soon be easy for self-driving cars to hide in plain sight. We shouldn't let them. Clearly an opinion piece there around the way that self-driving cars conduct their business in the future.
Yeah. Up next here, passenger lands a plane after pilot gets sick. Another one of these stories.
So in episode 247, the new tools for airport construction safety and phasing plans. We actually spent quite a lot of time talking about this, considering the nature of the topic.
It was a surprisingly popular episode too.
Hmm.
Experts are alarmed by Zoom's tech for detecting users' emotions. I'm
that
alarmed
was
but not surprised.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, given what one of our recent topics have been around about the use of AI, I think this will just go back into, do you remember them days where Zoom could actually just work out what your emotion was? Now it's actually just completely replacing you. The next one is making sure workers have a good day gives companies a competitive advantage. Another good story about looking after your staff and helping them perform.
Yeah, or I have a more cynical view on that. I think I've explained that you're trying to entrap your employees so that way they don't want to go and work somewhere else, get better salaries. Anyway, last up in May, in-person socialization down, but social media isn't to blame, researcher says. And that actually rounds us out through the month of May. I promise I didn't plan to be the last one to round out all these months. Barry, what about the first one of June?
So June, the first story there has supernumerary virtual robotic arms can feel like parts of our body.
That was a cool one.
Yeah, and I can't believe we didn't actually make an episode out of that.
I feel like we did, but maybe we didn't. I don't know. A new model sheds light on how we learn motor skills. More cognitive psychology. Love it.
Cool. Are babies the key to the next generation of artificial intelligence? I'm pleased you put artificial intelligence on there because I thought, are babies the key to the next generation? Well, yes, duh.
I mean,
this
would be a very interesting article to go back and review in the light of the last episode, one of the last episodes that we did on AI. Maybe both of the last two episodes that we did on AI. We don't know yet because we don't remember. We don't remember.
Yes,
we just don't remember.
It's all like Christmas mulled wine.
The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration releases initial data on safety performance of advanced vehicle technologies. Now, this is basically they're able to better identify any emerging risks or trends and learn more about how these technologies are performing in the real world. So that's kind of a cool report that they came out with, and really transformative in a lot of ways. Kind of sad that we didn't talk about that.
The next one is ambulance service staff unable to drive new vehicles due to the height.
So we've had Heidi on the show a couple times this year. She actually brought this up when I was talking with her one time, that yes, this actually happens, and it's sad. So hey, we talked about those double-decker airplane seats back in episode 250, smelling your neighbor's farts right in your face. So that was a fun one. Go back and listen to that one if you want to learn more about that.
And then the next article is around why people don't view the world the same way others do. And I don't think I read that one, but it's almost one of them obvious, well, they're different. So, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it was cognitive psych or neuropsych or something. I don't know. There's some unique flair to it that I thought was interesting. Anyway, children in remote school faced more sleep behavior and social challenges, which is sad. And I think highlights the importance of being in person.
Yep. Then on episode 249, we talked about Google sentient AI because Google places an engineer on leave after claiming its AI was sentient, which was a really interesting discussion, and actually, again, sort of springboards a lot of the AI discussions we've been having in the second half of this year.
Yeah, there has been a lot of AI discussion this year, and for good reason. We are on the horizon. We're very close to like having it be main place, and we're right there. This is a human factors issue through and through. We need to talk about it, and that there's a reason why we talked about it so much this year. Also, I'm just going to say, you all pick the stories. We don't anymore, and so it's you that want to hear about this. So there's that. Next up in June, we had bus rapid transit current state of practice. So that was
okay. We also had the new theory of decision making seeks to explain why humans don't make optimal choices. I thought that was an episode. Was that not an episode?
It
I
was
thought we
it
talked
was
about this.
it was in part of an episode. We combined them. I think it was with the it was just something else. And yeah, I do remember talking about that. Mass shootings leave lasting psychological wounds. Yes, they do.
Yep. And then in episode 252, we talked about the future of wearables, and the future of wearables is socks because smart textiles sense how their users are moving. Really interesting discussion. That go back and listen to it.
Yeah. And last up for June, again, I'm rounding it out again. Researchers study society's readiness for AI ethical decision making. Another AI article here. This one was episode 248. Is society ready for AI to make ethical decisions? And this was specifically talking about, in hospital settings, in settings where it could potentially save the lives of people or make those calls. And that was a really interesting talk and one that I'm glad we had.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
That brings us to July.
So in July, the first story up is towards a touchless airport journey. You're going through your higher airport process, and you didn't actually have to engage physically with any elements. It was a complete touchless journey through the airport.
Yeah, it's fun. One of my favorite stories of the year was The Line, a city without roads, cars, and emissions. This was episode 254. It's basically the Line, the city of the future in Neom. And there's a couple follow-ups to this. They actually broke ground on it. Have you seen the aerial shots? It is just one big, long line. And I've seen some really critical comments on this on social and everything about like, well, why is it just... and Snowpiercer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because all they need to do is shut down one wall and they're good for control. So yeah, that's exactly it. Anyway,
very tempted to reach out and see if we can do some sort of interview because I think that'd be fascinating.
That would be.
The next one, Google wants to test augmented reality glasses in public. What could possibly go wrong with that?
What is this? An article from 2010? Oh no! This is this year.
This is this year, and because obviously this is actually Google wanting to do this rather than anybody else. But it's we've been there, done that quite a lot.
For real. It was more like 2013, by the way. I think that was when Google. Anyway, customer and employee experience, the new normal. I think this was kind of just looking at customer experience, and employee experiences.
The next one, world population prospects in 2022. The UN gives a report on the world's population. Presumably, there's more of us.
Yeah, we did do an episode on that. We have 8 billion people to design for. We kind of did multiple population things in there to get that one in there. All right. Next up here, how to categorize conversational interfaces, which is something very interesting. And hopefully, if we talked about this last week, it's a good tie-in, especially as these conversational interfaces are becoming more mainstay.
Yeah. The next one is gender biases in search algorithms has effects on users, a new study finds. In a whole new case of, well, duh. But we can only say that now because there has actually been loads of studies now done about looking at things like gender bias in search algorithms like smart speakers and things like that as well. So yeah, this is still, whilst it's an obvious thing, it's still really good that we get these studies to prove it.
Right. All right. Let's look at the 4 bases of anti-science beliefs and what to do about them. So this is why people don't believe in science or are anti-science. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a very, very short reason about why people don't believe in science. Anyway, wearable arm muscles could help overcome upper body injuries, which is, I guess, an early thing into a lot of the wearable techs that we've been looking at, and we do have some episodes later on where we do talk about wearable tech in that way.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about that one, but again, I'm kind of looking at the stories every week, and so I recognized the thumbnail. Anyway, this is one that I definitely know we talked about. This is episode 251. Grandma, relax. It's just a robot. This was New York State is giving out hundreds of robots as companions for the elderly, and that's a really important thing, especially as the elderly get lonely.
Yeah, that was episode 251, and really, as we look at how the changing landscape of social care, really, really key step forward. And then the next one is the link between recognizing our voice and feeling in control.
Yeah, I feel in control of the podcast when I can hear my voice through these headphones. So, all right, the post-Roe data privacy nightmare is way bigger than period tracking apps. Yeah, the repeal of Roe v. Wade happened this year here in the States. Anyway, there's a lot of privacy concerns around that, and it's a huge issue that deserves its time in the spotlight that we didn't get. All right, up in August, Barry, what's going on in August?
So the first one up in August, managing enhanced risk in the mega project world. That's looking at like when you've got some super huge projects or programs and how you manage risk in them.
All right, next up, AI. Is AI good for healthcare? So yeah, another AI story.
Yes, I think is the answer to that. We may never fully know how video games affect our well-being, and we discussed that in episode 257. Do video games affect your well-being?
Yeah. Well, did we answer that question?
I think we probably did.
Probably not. We never do. All right. Random acts of kindness make a bigger splash than expected. Probably.
That's quite cool. It's been a long. I used to do some random acts of kindness. Haven't done them for a while. Maybe I need to take that back up again.
Maybe you do.
Another AI story. So but the first, no, I was going to say the first AI story for August it isn't. It's the second one. So AI allows dead woman to talk to people who showed up at her funeral.
Yeah, that's
still
it, and that's not to be confused with
talking
the
to
other one, to your dead relatives. It's a different dead person story. I think it's built on the same tech, but we'll see. Study finds that buttons in cars are safer and quicker to use than touchscreens. That one we did talk about on the show, episode 258. Touchscreens are killing your driving experience. And yeah, I mean, this is something that almost every human factors person knows, but it's fun to talk about nonetheless.
But that was a very special one because
it was.
Because it was
you just went on and on and on about your new car.
Yeah, I'd got my new car that week, and so I could actually do it on live. So real, almost ethnographic type experience there. Anyway, the next one that we talked around on episode 256, the world population is going to hit 8 billion any day now. So we have 8 billion humans to design for within the world.
Yeah, that's a lot of humans. It's a lot of humans. Google examines how the different generations handle misinformation. So that's a good case study of basically how we look at it.
Yeah, and something I've been talking about very recently with students. The next one is sloppy use of machine learning is causing a reproducibility crisis in science.
All them people using AI chatbots to write their science. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Hey, by the number. Oh, sorry. What was that, Barry?
I was going to say I think they need to stop doing that and start doing it properly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, clearly. All right, by the numbers, the Inflation Reduction Act. This is so basically looking at lowering costs for families, combating climate crisis, reducing the deficit, finally asking the largest corporations to pay their fair share. Obviously, we didn't talk about it on the show, but it was a transformative bill that had a lot of human factors things in it, and it would have been fun to talk about.
Yeah. The next one, which actually we talked about on episode 255, where we titled it, I've had it with these HF robots on this HF space station, whereas the actual title was a surgery performing robot is ready for tests on the International Space Station. So basically they had a robot that they could take up and allow you to perform surgery in space, meaning people could stay up there. And it's something we don't really think about. If somebody has a major medical issue in the space station, what do they do about it? Because you can't just get an ambulance back down to Earth on super quick.
I unironically love the Snakes on a Plane movie. So anytime I can make a reference to that movie and Sam
Totally.
Jackson, I mean, come on. And MF and HF, oh come on. It's just the perfect title. Come on. Title of the year. Title of the year. All right.
Yeah.
Augmented reality could be the future of paper books, according to a new research. So looking at basically AR in paper books, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. The next one, emerging hazards in commercial aviation. The report won initial assessment of safety data and analysis processes. I'm sure that's a right.
Yay. Yeah, more reports. I love these reports because they really do give you a lot of juicy details about what's going on in the state of the industries. They're not always the most popular topics for us to talk about on the show, which is
They're not the sexiest headlines in the world, are they?
no, they're not. They're not, but I mean they're really important. So, sometimes people could but anyway. Sprint then stop. Brain is wired for the math to make it happen. I think that's basically go, 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 then stop, and your brain is okay with it. And Barry, you get to end this one.
Yay! So the last one for August, the first time I've been able to do a last one, is some types of stress could be good for brain functioning, which is actually quite true. We know that there is a stress curve
Right.
where you have a performance thing, but that bit where you just tip over the edge is still a bit vague.
All right, and that ends out August. So we're going to start with September, but right after this, we'll be right back and maybe change clothes again and be festive. All right, we'll be right back. And we're back. We're going to start on September now. And I forget who went last. We once again changed our clothes. So I'll go first here. First in September, we had studies suggesting that watching TV with your child can help their cognitive development. If that's the case, I am in good shape.
Well done, you. Next one is moral injury is an invisible epidemic that affects millions.
Ah, yes, that one was. Yes, I remember that one when I was reading it. Experts: 90% of online content will be AI generated by 2026. Go figure. We just did a couple stories on AI, and I think this is absolutely true. In fact, we have a lot of AI content generation tools behind the scenes that we've been using, has really accelerated our growth. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah. The next one was episode 260, a new way to alert drivers to pedestrians, inspired by the article that Ford drivers could get alerts from nearby pedestrians' phones, which was very timely because I don't know whether I mentioned it, but I got a new car, and which happened to be a Ford, and all linked into this, and so I could then wax lyrical about my different screen sizes and things.
Yes, I remember the conversation about your new car. You were very excited about it, and still are. Presumably, you still like it.
It's
Let's do the end of the year check-in. All right, good.
really is good.
Glad you're liking it. Hey, this one was cool, and I'm really sad that we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But HP made a robot that prints blueprints onto a construction site. So they had a little robot out there that took a little bit of chalk and basically outlined some places for a construction site with this robot. It's kind of cool.
Cool. The next one, scientists asked students to try and fool anti-cheating software, and they did, which is good. I mean, actually, this fits in with a lot of the AI stuff we've been talking about as well. Is what actually, if you've got tools online, what is cheating and what is plagiarism, and how does AI fit into all of that as well?
Right. Let's see here. Crypto guy. Desperately poor people could be NPCs in video games. I don't know. Taking people who are in need of money, like for Fiverr tasks, to be an NPC in a video game. Is it not? It's not an NPC at that point, though.
No,
Anyway.
I'm fairly sure there's been like films around that. Wasn't the Running Man based on something kind of similar? Anyway, the next one, embracing CX in the metaverse. So that's around a very near future omnichannel customer experience, CX, seamlessly integrating several different physical and digital retail modes. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Very cool. Up next, we had The Metaverse Needs Standards too. And this was an episode that we did, episode 259. Metaverse standards are coming. And this was a very important discussion, I think, that as we start to look at sort of these VR environments as they are today, and even over the last couple of months, you've seen sort of the decline of the metaverse already, which is just funny how trends change so quickly.
Though I think again, that's going around that whole idea of no one actually truly knows what the metaverse is.
Yeah.
But the next one, a memory prosthesis could restore memory in people with damaged brains, which I think is an absolutely fascinating thing for where you've got degenerative illnesses as you get older. And I think the more we can do around this is brilliant. So I was quite keen on that story.
Ooh, Barry, you're going to get to end on this one. So the next one up here is changing perceptions about harm can temper moral outrage. So basically, I think what the moral of this story was that understanding sexual risk avoidance is kind of what it was looking at, but understanding people engaging in sexual behavior at a young age. Is it self-harm? Probably not. And changing your perceptions around that is going to allow you to be less outraged about it.
And I actually get to finish one. This is the first one all year that I've been able to finish. So the final article of September was "What You Know Changes How You See Things," and I think this is one of the articles that we kind of went, "Well, yeah, duh."
Mm-hmm.
You know, who could have saw experience tempering how you interpret things?
Yeah, who would have thought? Okay, so then that brings us to October here. The first one up is we used to get excited about technology. What happened? And this is kind of citing some of the technology craze of the 1990s, where you had the crazy colored gadgets like the apples, with the pastel. No, it's not pastel. It's like just all those multicolored Apple devices, and think about like the Game Boy Color, and just how everything was kind of wacky and wild for the 90s. And we used to get excited about the new releases and the new iPhones and the new, not in the 90s, but the new
Yeah.
generations of phones, and now it's just a commonplace. Is investigating what happened there.
Well, I think that's interesting because really we've stopped. They always used to be really big step changes in technology. You'd have like super big phones, whereas now it's just so incremental.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really see any changes. It's more of a fashion thing. The next one is technology that lets us speak to our dead relatives. Are we ready for that? And so we talked about that in episode 263. Talking to dead people is about to get real, and there was loads of examples now about people using AI and things like that to regenerate people's, like say on a screen or something like that, to allow you to have them sort of conversations. And I remember us talking about things. Well, how does that affect how we deal with grief and things like that? So quite a deep episode, that one.
Yeah, that you weren't on that episode. It was me and Heidi. You were out that week.
I'm fairly sure I spoke on that because didn't we bring in some of Bob Stone stuff?
Oh, it might have been a different episode that we talked about it on too, because I think that one specifically you were out. Maybe, I don't know. It's all a blur, man. It's all a blur. This next one here was interesting though, because it was talking about the sort of future of what it could look like when flying cars exist. And is traffic noise from flying cars stressful? So they're kind of looking at the stress levels caused by the sound of a flying car passing overhead. You can imagine. The stress might be a little higher than if it was just a plane traveling overhead at a higher altitude. Now you're working at something at much lower altitude, theoretically, with more flying cars around and more opportunity for accidents. Does that increase your level of stress when you're just sitting at home? Probably.
The bigger, greater possibility of it dropping out of the sky. The next story is this flight simulator recreates the worst part of flying, and that is being a passenger.
I think there's some merit to that one, though. I think there's some really important things that we can learn from putting somebody in a passenger seat in a plane and watching how they interact. Are we going to take those lessons to heart? I don't know. Hey, we got this AI Bill of Rights from the White House, which is really timely considering what we just discussed over the last couple of weeks here. But basically, what AI needs to have and what it can't have, which I think is a really important piece of the puzzle that is missing from AI right now.
Yeah. Next one is a robotic exoskeleton adapts to wearers to help them walk faster, and that was for us was in 262, where with robotic boots walking the walk. Really interesting.
Walking the walk, talking the talk. All right, moving on here. Up next, we have safety effects of raising the speed limits to 75 miles per hour and higher. So basically, speed limit laws here in the States kind of vary from municipality to municipality. And in the 1990s, many states increased those limits to 75 miles per hour on select roads. And some states have speed limits that are greater than 75 miles per hour. And really, this is kind of analyzing the effects of the safeness. How safe is it? I don't know.
How's the next one, scientists propose putting giant googly eyes on self-driving cars. Brilliant. Love the idea. For Halloween, we put googly eyes on our gate. You can't, there's nothing you can't put googly eyes on and therefore and improve it.
We actually had a lab discussion with Katie from our lab saying we should just we should do human factors TikToks with googly eyes on things to explain concepts. And I love it. I love that. Hey, one of my biggest blunders of the year here, episode 261. Are you lost without your phone? This was a story. Smartphones promise satisfaction and meaning, deliver only more searching, study finds. We can move on from that one, Barry.
The next one, do humans think computers make fair decisions? Yeah.
I don't know, do they? The road to future of AI is paved with trust. Again, like getting at all these things. I think the theme of this year is definitely AI, if not, for our own interests, but clearly the interests of the listeners, because they choose the stories for the week. And week over week, it's always been about AI most of the time.
It's clearly on the tip of everybody's tongue, and it is the next big thing.
It is.
Then the final one of October, I get to do 2 last ones in a row. That's amazing. How people rate pizza, jobs, and relationships is surprisingly predictive of their behavior.
I love that story. It's just so interesting. Yeah. All right. So, hey, we're in November now. We're really starting to catch up to where we've been. We need to change the system that keeps pilots from seeking mental health care. So we actually did this quite recently. This is when we had Heidi on the show a couple weeks ago. I don't have a number in front of me, but I will get that for you as we're talking here. But that was a really great story and almost a monologue from Heidi, who went into some of her experiences as somebody who was seeking pilot training. And that's episode 266, Pilots in Distress. That was literally like a month ago that we did that, from the time of this recording. So
well done for pulling out that out of the bag. Very dynamic. Well done. The next story was talking around the future of aviation. Aviation has a future.
Yeah. And then we have designing the future of retail here. So basically COVID-19 changing everything. And basically with inflation kind of having these lasting impacts, it's basically kind of paving the way for these new retail experiences.
The next one is, China just announced a new social credit law. And here's what it means. The article goes on about how China is implementing social credit, which there is a number of takes you can have on that story.
There's a number of takes you can have on that story. Also, by the way, all these were selected to be potential candidates for the show. And so some of these, I'm like, man, it would have been fun to talk about that. That's one I'm kind of glad we avoided.
For long-lasting, other social issues like...
Yeah. Hey, this next one, though, Safety 1 to Safety 2 white paper. This is kind of looking at how we move from a system of ensuring that as few things as possible go wrong to a system where many things as possible go right. And we talked a little bit about Safety 1 and Safety 2 with Joe Keebler a little bit earlier this year during our conference coverage of the Human Factors Healthcare Symposium.
Yeah. So the next one is a article that discusses the usability of augmented reality. Anybody who's on LinkedIn and looks at the work of Professor Bob Stone, he's all of this like a rash and will comment on every single paper that comes out like this.
Yeah, good comments too. Patient Safety Incident Response Framework, PSURF, I think is how they, So that's a thing. There's
it's out there. It's been rolled out. I think UK and US. So it's interesting. The next one is framework for assessing potential safety impacts of automated driving systems. Again, back into a bit of automation AI type topics.
Yes, and then this one was also fun to talk about on the show. The UX nightmare that is Twitter verification. Now we actually did this in episode 265. Our episode was why Twitter's new verification system is a total disaster. We kind of talked a little bit about the trust aspects that go on behind the scenes of trusting corporate accounts and whether or not somebody whose responsibility is it, all that stuff. It was a good conversation.
It was. The next one, tracking trust in human robot work interactions. About having that look on how does trust get laid in between the two.
Next one here. New study shows how voting methods affect group decision making. And this was on multi-voting, which was actually a really cool topic that we talked about on the show. I loved this episode. This is one of my sleeper hits. It was basically multi-voting, the best option for decision making, group decision making. Basically looking at how multi-voting can almost determine the outcome before you even start having a discussion on where to go with something. So that was actually a really cool conversation. Highly recommend going back and listening to that one.
Yeah, because with that one, we like not only what the outputs were, but the methodology that they used to get there. We had a really good discussion on.
Yeah.
And then the final one for November, AI helps humans level up. So again, looking at the use of AI to help us do more with what we're doing.
It's almost like the person who picked these stories noticed a trend in AI and started picking more and more stories, or there's just more AI stories that had human factors implications. Hey, we're now in December, the beginning of this month, and we have a couple of top stories for you. So the first one here is National State of Patient Safety Report 2022, kind of taking a look back at patient safety over the year.
Next one is Shared Automation Vehicle Toolkit, policies and planning considerations for implementation, which is really good because it's something we've been hammering on about quite a lot, where we're looking at automation, AI, and that type of thing. The need for policies to help us do this in a safe and effective way.
Yeah. All right. Coming up next year, human creators stand to benefit as AI rewrites the rules of content creation. You just need to go back a couple weeks to listen to this one. This is episode 267, where I freaked out about generative AI being a disruption and a game changer. So go listen to that one. It's a great conversation. And yeah, I mean, it's transformative. We're there. It's going to be so cool because the next story, Barry,
is how ChatGPT is blowing Google out of the water. A UX breakdown.
So funnily enough, that is not the story that we actually talked about. That was the story that we wanted to do, but we ended up talking about the UI of Google, or the UI of ChatGPT, because this story was actually taken down in between us selecting it for the show and us doing the show. So we found one from the same source that was along the same lines. But hey, the tech is finally good enough for an airship revival. I am really sad that this story didn't get selected because this one was a really cool one, but it was up against the ChatGPT. So of course,
maybe we need to try and roll that into next year. And then the final one for December, the final one for 2022. Hearing is believing. Sounds can alter our visual perception.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that was it for the year of 2022. I can't believe we made it through all those stories. And you know what? We have just a little bit of time left, and I'd like to take a little bit of a retrospective. I took a little bit out of the Barry Kirby 1202 podcast playbook here, and I went through and looked at some of our top downloaded episodes. I also took a look at some of our top moments in the form of YouTube shorts and TikToks and Instagram reels that we've put out there. I've consolidated the data across all the platforms, okay? And some of these ones are surprising and some of them are maybe not so surprising. We're going to take a look at some of the top 10 shorts or moments from across the podcast. Starting at number 10 here, we're going to work our way down, Barry. We got to alternate here. Number 10, the best advice for your career. And this was basically Heidi coming in onto the show and saying, create a cover your ass document that basically outlines your reasoning for doing something. So that way, when somebody comes back and says something contradictory, you can point to that document and say, but look here. What was number 9, Barry?
Number 9 was, what is the difference between HF, UX, and HCI? So we went into the differences between them all and actually highlighted that they're all very similar.
Yeah, if you go on our TikTok, that's the one of me going like this with the little umbrella. Election night, but without internet. That was number 8. That was me freaking out about election night results because I was in a cabin without internet. So that was fun.
Number 7, should PMs or project managers be making recommendations? And that was, should they be making HF or UX recommendations? And really, no, they shouldn't.
Barry, I have to apologize for this next one, man. It's only been out for a couple weeks and it's already one of our top performing videos of all time. Misogynist called out. This is
where Barry gets cancelled. Yay!
This is when Barry was making a joke about Heidi not being even considered to be a pilot on that episode, and Barry goes, "What's wrong with that?" Just jokingly, and I made him look like a misogynist on our social. So there's that.
Yeah, yay! So you might not see me around for much longer. Number 5 was caught in the act, which is hashtag caught, hashtag HFES 2022, hashtag livestream fail, hashtag live, hashtag oops, which is when we went on live, and we've been well primed for it all day, back live, and then we went to this, when we came back at one point, and Nick is basically doing other things. It's like, hello.
Yeah, I had a mouthful of nuts. So you'll notice a trend here that some of the top videos are at my expense. So, Barry, number 6 was yours, but number 3 is mine. Hey, number 4 though, this was how often do UX researchers travel? And this one actually surprised me how well this one did. So it's obviously a question that a lot of folks have. How often do UX researchers travel? Now, what's number 3, Barry? I'm ready.
Number 3 was when was called Pegging Board, and it's when Nick sort of highlighted the things he has off camera in order to help him retain motivation and be able to do things that not the rest of us can see.
Wow. Well said. Hey, number 2, again, like some of the AI stories really taken off. Will AI replace creators? And so this was a discussion on whether AI will in fact the generative art. This was actually done before that episode. We had kind of it was an "it came from" question. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what I'll let you reveal what number 1 was.
So number 1 of the top 10 shorts or top 10 moments of this year's generative AI is a game changer, which, given how many episodes and everything that we've had to do with AI this year, it's possibly not a surprise.
No, not at all. So those were our top 10 shorts. We'll do one more little thing here. Barry, I'll let you go first. We're just going to read the episode titles. This is our top 10 downloaded episodes for the year of 2022. We took in all our episodes across the entire year, looked at them. Here's what we got. Barry, number 10.
So at number 10 was episode 257, Do Video Games Affect Your Well-Being?
Number 9, episode 252, The Future of Wearables is Socks?
At 8 was 249, Let's Talk About Google Sentient AI.
Is it really sentient though? Because I mean, after the last couple episodes, maybe, who knows? Hey, number 7, this one should make everyone really proud here. That's on the show. Ergonomics and Human Factors Conference 2022 recap.
Yeah, and then at 6, 242. How top human factors, how top reviews help sway consumer decisions. Can't get any of that right.
No, it's okay. That's okay. It's the end of the show. Hey, episode 245 is number 5. How human-robot interaction will change the food industry. That was a fun episode. Seems like it translated well.
4 was episode 241. How giving paramedics jetpacks can stop people from dying, which was quite cool. We got to talk a bit about flying with just a jetpack on up the hills in the Lake District.
Speaking of novel ways to use technology, episode 243, how human factors can help pilots catch a rocket booster in midair. We talked a little bit about this earlier as a follow-up. Yeah.
As in they didn't. And at 2, episode 244, fixing humanity's broken risk perception to save the planet.
And number 1, drum roll, please. Let's Kiss in VR. That's it. It's a provocative title that made people click on the link, probably, but it was definitely our one of our top episodes. And I'm surprised that there's another episode that got a lot of attention, let's say, about risky driving behaviors that didn't make the top 10, which I'm a little surprised about. But because considering it's the top search that leads people to to our website. But that's going to be it for today. We just want to take a minute to thank all of you, every single one of you listening to the show. This show can't happen without you. And genuinely, keep listening in 2023. We got a lot of really great things for you all. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Hopefully you like these recaps. Let us know what you think of them. We especially want to thank our patrons for funding our lab and our prosperity here with the podcast. It makes it a little bit easier to spend a little bit more time on this every week when we know we have some support doing so. So thank you all for all of your continued support. Really appreciate you all. Keep the show running, all that stuff. But that's going to be it for today, everyone. What did you think of the stories this year? Let us know in our Discord. I have no other episodes to recommend to you because all this was recommending episodes. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, like I said, there's a couple ways to do that. Leave us a 5-star review. You can do that wherever you're at right now. Tell your friends about us. Consider supporting us on Patreon if you have the financial means to do so. If you also want to do this too, you can comment wherever you're listening, what you think of the stories this year. Join our Discord for all that fun stuff. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. All of our socials on our website and are in the description of this episode. Mr. Barry Kirby, thank you for being on the show this year. I can say that. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about some of your favorite moments from this year? Like,
so yeah, with the exception of that moment, you can go and find and talk to me about anything because I'm open to chat about anything, especially if it helps us get better insights. You find me on Twitter and across my socials at Baz_K. But if you want to come and listen to some professionals in the human factors field or adjacent, then you can find me on 1202 The Human Factors Podcast, 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on Discord, regretting my life choices around pegboards and eating snacks on live stream. You can find me at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time.
It depends.
See you in 2020.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.